Hello, good evening, and welcome to another Ask Andy Everything. Hopefully you can all hear me out there. If somebody out there in the comments could throw a quick, hey, yeah, we can hear you, that would be great, because I don't trust my sound system anymore. It having borked itself about 12 times in the last few months. So do please drop me a quick message. But with the assumption that things are going relatively well, let me just give a quick hi to everyone. For those of you who've not joined in with one of these before, let's lay out the rules. It's pretty simple. My name's Andy Law. I am an award-winning games designer, cartographer, writer, and a whole bunch of other stuff. I stream a lot online doing things such as roleplay games online, or alternatively chatting about gaming in general over on Inside the Rookery. And you can basically throw any question you fancy at me if you want me to answer it. Make sure you add an @LAWhammer beforehand. I almost certainly will miss it. Alternatively, if you throw it up as a super chat, I will definitely catch it. So anyone that throws money at the channel will always be answered first, because basically it's my way of saying thanks very much for supporting the channel and also supporting our current attempts to build a new studio, which is going to be going in my garden in that direction. Not that you can tell what direction that is, I'm just on the screen, but over there we're currently halfway through planning that with the architects, and we intend to have that going up soon. That's going to be for the LAWhammer channel, in particular for us doing our actual play every week. It's not going to be that much bigger than the living room that we currently stream from, but it is going to give me my living room back, which would be really nice, because I've had no living room for almost 3 years, because we've been streaming LAWhammer for 3 years now. Wow. Just taking a moment to realize that we've been doing that for almost 3 years. Heck, that's quite a while. So, that all said, let's dive in. As those of you who have been to one of these before will know, that I'll ping up comments and we'll see where it all goes from there. Comments such as, she says, we can hear you. Thanks very much for confirming that, Devon. Really appreciated. I presume Devon is the first part of your name. I just picked the first bit that looked like it was a name. I'm going to move on quickly, and thanks for confirming that I can be heard, the bloke person as well, and some others too. Cool. So let's dive straight in. And we'll come in first with a 1.21 gigawens. Hi, and thanks very much for the super chat. Really appreciated. If you were to port something you haven't already from 40k to Warhammer Fantasy, what would it be? How would you do it? And why that? Incidentally, I would watch the hell of a stream out this series where all 4 Lorebeard hosts focused on doing this. Yeah, that would be interesting, wouldn't it? So, Now, there is an important part of this question I'm going to pull out, Gigawens. You've said that I haven't done already. And I have done in my time, because I am sadly quite old, a lot of porting both from and to 40k and Warhammer in both cases. And when I did it in the past, it was commonplace. It was very common. It happened in White Dwarfs. It happened in a whole host of supplements. Many supplements for early Warhammer released for both 40k and for Warhammer. Take Warhammer Siege, for example, big siege battles, and it was both how to do it for Warhammer and Warhammer 40k. That was all the way back at 1st edition 40k and 3rd edition Warhammer, as I recall. And during that era, I did a lot of this. So that you haven't done before is a tough shout. I have ported Necrons over. I have ported Genestealers over. I have had Tyranids in their entirety over, and a massive Tyranid hive fleet attacking the Warhammer world. And the secret to that one, by the way, was dragons, but that's a completely different story. I have had Space Marines of various stripes. We have completely repitched the entirety of the Horus Heresy, where the Horus Heresy as presented in the novels was nothing more than the popularized fiction of 40k, and they got to see the truth. And the truth in that case was, it wasn't 20 brothers in arms. It was a mixture of different sexes, and the Emperor has a very rare genetic disease in this particular one, where he had 20 separate chromosomes sitting upon his genetic strand, and all of those were siphoned out for a big, huge reason. All of the Elder Gods being posted backwards and forwards from Warhammer to 40k multiple times for me. The problem here is I've already done almost all of it, both backwards and forwards, which makes this question almost impossible to answer. The only real way to answer it would be to say, is there anything new in 40k from about the last 5 years that made me go, ooh, let's add that? And the answer is no, not really. Most of the new stuff for 40k is just developments of what came before. There's been not a huge amount that made me go, oh, that's really new and exciting, must be added. So sadly, my answer to this one, GigaWins, to be somewhat annoying and would be, I would just like to do it again, but in a different way. So I'm going to take that question, because I wouldn't like you to have dropped money in our direction for me not to answer it properly. So if I was going to do it again and pitch it in a different way, I would probably go for Neil Dari. No. What would I like to see really hit Warhammer that's ported over and would fit really well? Now I've done that, and I've done that pretty well too. I would probably, it's going to be something good with the Necrons and the Catan and using them in a different way. I've done it before, but I think I could have done it better, especially with some sort of shrine world. So that's almost certainly what I would do. But I'd like to do it properly, so that's not going to be something we could sit and discuss for this entire stream, because it would be literally this entire stream discussing it. So there you go, that's what I'd be working on. Friend or traitor? Andy, friend or traitor? Thank you very much. If you were to take an Age of Sigmar faction and chuck them into fantasy, which would it be? Where in the old world would you transplant the Crow Boys? Over into the Wolfland, somewhere over there makes a lot of sense for the Crow Boys. Age of Sigmar faction and chuck them into fantasy, I would probably want to play around a little bit with the IDNF Deepkin, because I think there's quite a lot in their story which I would want to seed in Warhammer. So I wouldn't transport the Deepkin. What I would do is have the Deepkin be a natural evolution of something that had come from a previous version of what the elves were. And I think that would work quite well. In some respects, we have that with the other factions of the elves, where it's quite clear that the Wood Elves became the Sylvaneth, and it's quite clear the Dark Elves became the Daughters of Cain, whatever. And it would be nice, I think, to have an equivalent there. I think that would be quite fun to play around with too. Jonathan King. Hi, and thank you very much. The Von Carsteins require Sylvania back. Sylvania back. Do you mean just Sylvania back? They require Sylvania back. You're basically saying it should be theirs. Yeah, the Von Carsteins absolutely think this. But then it's this weird thing where the territory seems to matter almost as much as their very existence. I see no reason why Sylvania is more or less important than anywhere else, because it was never given a really strong canonical reason for why Sylvania mattered and why it couldn't literally be anywhere. And Vashanesh's choice for there, or Vlad if you prefer, is almost certainly centered around Isabella, not around the land. It was a choice born of fascination, love, obsession. You can choose your own preferred emotion for exactly how that sits down. I know what Steve Saville did when he wrote about it inside the Vampire Chronicles. I was discussing it with him at the time, and we took different takes for how it could go down. And I remember us having a lovely discussion about him being the Heathcliff of vampires in the Warhammer world. Good times were had back then. But yeah, sure. They should. Let's move back down here. Colby Carrion. I hope I said your name right. Your thoughts on the Cogfort? I might be the only person that wasn't that keen on it. I mean, it was fine. I'm going to go look at it again just to see if I'm being unfair. I'm going to go look again. Going to go at Cogfort. Let's have a quick look. Oh, wait a minute. I hear somebody arriving. What's going on here? Oh, a surprise Lindsay appears while I'm looking up at the Cogfort.
Wow, it's not the Von Carsteins, it's the Von Catsteins, and they require the Sylvania back.
Oh, I read it wrong. Oh, thank you, Jonathan King. I'm an idiot. I completely misread it. Lindsay to save the day. Okay, Cogfort. I mean, it feels like something I would have made when I was 15 and I thought was the coolest thing ever, which is not a bad thing, because when I was 15 I thought a lot of things were cool that were cool. 15-year-old Andy's not a bad guy, honest, but it doesn't really do it for me. It's not something I'm all that excited about. I can imagine other folks will think it's the best thing ever, but I'm not entirely convinced that. Yeah, I mean, I want to like it. Will I do? Sorry, I'm moving on swiftly before I get caught up in my. It's not that I dislike it. I feel almost nothing for it. Sorry. Snow Safety, would you ever consider having your own Lorebeards wiki or resource website? I appreciate your depth in history and your Warhammer lore. It would be a redundancy. It wouldn't really be needed. The wikis out there are pretty good, and they could easily be much better if somebody just sat down and fixed them. Much of the wikis are filled with unexpected fan material and also suppositions that aren't actually sourced in the books. But the biggest, I would suggest, sin of the current set of wikis is not the inclusions, it's the lack of inclusions. They often just miss vast tracts of lore, meaning that the stories that they tell on the wikis are often just partial. They get some of the bits right, they get other bits wrong, and they sometimes make it up, as in it's fan material that was drawn from, or alternatively, they come to the wrong conclusions about some points because they don't have all the sources. Now, does that mean we should do an alternative? No. If you find this is something that bothers you, Snowseth, I would suggest whenever you find out a new factoid, just pop over onto the wiki that you prefer, whether it's Lexicanum or whatever, and just update it. It's not particularly difficult to do. And the work that would be required for us to do something ourselves would be pretty significant. Pretty significant. We would need to do, a lot to turn that into a thing. So I don't think that's something I'm interested in. If others, though, are, and they want to run it, then I'd be well up for that. Andy, if you will, imagine dragons. It's funny because we just had some dragons in LAWhammer just last Friday, and we got ourselves a dragon, and they got to see how the Empire can, under the correct circumstances, deal with the dragon, and they did. It was pretty fucking impressive. Unfortunately for them, for story reasons, defeating the dragon was almost certainly the worst thing they could do. But hey, go figure. That's the fun of games, eh? Do I own Tabletop Simulator? Yes. Have I played Spirit Island? Yes. That was easy. Best questions ever, Biofoot. Yes to both. I am Tabletop Simulator I've got because I sometimes help a bunch of other game designy friends help design their games, and they'll pop them up in Tabletop Simulator, and I will give them critiques. I am a harsh critic when it comes to game design, fun, and making sure games work. But hopefully, and they keep coming back, hopefully the criticisms that I provide are useful and can help develop a game into something better. So I use it mostly for that. And when it comes to games, I just game. I'm gaming all the time. Whenever I'm not writing about games or talking about games, I am gaming. And that's both video games, battle games, board games, whatever else I can get my fingers on. At the moment, I'm deep into Crimson Desert, and regardless of what the reviews say, it's freaking great. It took a wee while for it to sink its claws into me, but it has sunk its claws into me, and it's absolutely brilliant. Really enjoying that game a lot. Yeah, and just to make sure we got it, Catstein's, not Carstein's. I just read it wrong. One of the joys of my stupid brain is it sometimes does that. Ricky Chapman, Andy, Ricky, started the Elric and Melody books. Interesting. Whoa, a lot of stuff references this stuff, or is just straight up stolen from this series. Yeah, you're not wrong. You'll find that the Eternal Champions cycle as a whole by Michael Moorcock has been stolen wholesale by Games Workshop multiple times and repitched into multiple characters. And it's not just the whole concept of chaos, which they took from Michael Moorcock's version of chaos. It's not just the 8-pointed star of chaos, which they took. It's not just the chaos gods and how they sort of work that they uplifted. It's not just all the things like mutants and beastmen and all the rest, which again all come from Michael Moorcock. The very concept of demons being held inside blades, the idea of them stealing souls, which was ported over into the first Realms of Chaos books. That's what Demon Blades did. There's just so many cross references that it reaches the point that it's pointless to even try and pretend that it's not just a direct lift. If I was to pick out a single individual who was most responsible for inspiring Games Workshop with its many worlds, I would choose Moorcock over, say, for example, Tolkien. Because Moorcock has done so much more broad work that has been uplifted and pasted in. A lot of his ideas are in 40k as well, where almost nothing, not quite nothing, but almost nothing of Tolkien, other than the fact that the Eldar are sort of elfy-like, hits through into 40k, where the Eldar are the Eldrin of Michael Moorcock. And they're not pretty much different at all. They got developed a lot later and gained a whole bunch of new stuff and eventually developed into, let's call them now the Eldari rather than the Eldar. And the Eldari are a far broadly more unique Games Workshop iteration of what come before. But yeah, you're not wrong, Ricky Chapman. You're not wrong at all. They really do deeply draw from Michael Moorcock. Alrighty, moving down, and just to call out, Lindsay indeed was the hero that you all needed because she got that right. I'm really glad she came out. Thanks, Lindsay, if you're still out there. You rock. I'm an idiot. Moving down, Biofoot. What are your thoughts on Einstein Bose condensate? You've got me on one. I don't know this one. God damn it. It happens sometimes. I'm going to have to go check up what that is. God damn it. You always throw me with one, and this time you got me. And I'm happy to see when I don't know a thing. I don't know this thing. There's a distinct state of matter formed when bosons such as are cooled to temperatures near absolute zero. At this point, individual atoms lose their identity and merge in a single superatom. Yeah. So I've read about this. I read about this. When would this have been? It feels like it was ages ago. So, is there any dates for this stuff? In the early 1920s. So it does make sense. Fifth state of matter alongside all the rest, plasma and all the rest. So I sadly did not know this one off the top of my head. I bow to you for catching me out while simultaneously saying, I don't really have any strong thoughts on this. This is the sort of detail that I often drill into when I'm starting world building something new. And I'll often go, what if the world was a bit different? What if the states of matter are the way they are for a reason that we haven't yet understood? Like one of the Warhammer games I had was a big what if concerning gravity and the weak yet strong force of gravity and what gravity was in fact doing in the Warhammer world and the gates of chaos and all the rest of it. And the answer to that started speaking directly through to what the winds of magic were and everything else. And that led me down a massive rabbit hole looking into what gravity is, why gravity works the way it does, the various theories, and the fact that they don't truly understand aspects of it, but they can experimentally get all the correct answers from it. So there's lots of theories which appear to be correct, but some of the theories might not be. And some of the discussions as to why the theories of gravity may be wrong, as into the process of how gravity works, was where I pretty much picked up and went, what if that was because of something else? I'm getting visited again. This is twice in a single evening. What is it this time?
You missed Watchdog Super Chat.
I missed Watchdog Super Chat. Yeah, I'm really glad I've got somebody looking over my shoulder. Is it this one here? Yes, it is. It's okay. I'll catch that. Oh, an idiot. Thank you. Anyway, let's move on. I've got the Lindsay police on my shoulder, and thank goodness that I do. I'm going to go back to Watchdog's comment right now, it's because I missed it because of the Bifoots one. I'll end this one on, I don't have thoughts on it just now, but if I go read into it again, I almost certainly will, because one of the great joys of reading into anything that's scientific and new to me is thinking about the ramifications of what I'm reading to a world if they've got the underpinning science. No, not the science. The understanding of why the science is the way it is slightly wrong. And it can make for some really good Delta Green, Call of Cthulhu nonsense, or for fantasy world nonsense for saying, in this world, it works this way. So, yeah. Apologies, Watchdog. And thank you for catching it out, Lindsay. What do you think it would be like for an individual member of a Warhammer fantasy species to meet their 40k counterparts? Elves, orcs, halflings, humans, dwarfs. I laugh because I've done it. This is a deep question, and in fact, is arguably an entire stream's worth. This is the sort of crazy Wednesday stream that we could potentially do on Lorebeards, either 40k or Warhammer, where we could say what would happen and how would everybody react to the lives of each other. And in general brushstrokes, it's always going to be the 40k guys look at the backwards Warhammer guys and go, those guys, hey, they're a bit backwards, ain't they? They're basically just a feral world and they're rubbish. And to some degree, that is loosely correct. The Warhammer world does have a lot of things that the 40k universe sort of doesn't have. And most of that is derived from the way magic works there and the unique nature of how the winds of magic permeate through the Warhammer world in a way that they don't over in 40k. And it's created a host of very unique situations. Got to remember, if we just look at the odds alone, the number of psychers in the 40k world is a diminishingly low number. Where if you look at over in Warhammer, flooded with magic all over it, there's wizards around every other corner doing crazy wizard shit. And they're the equivalent of often top tier psychers in terms of their capabilities and what they can do. So I think that as a specific question, we'd actually be better doing that on Lorebeards a bit more broadly, because I think we could have some really fun conversations, particularly about orcs and orcs, because orcs and greenskins in general are oddly different, yet oddly the same. And that one I think would make for a fascinating conversation. The halflings, ratlings thing, there's some things we could say there, but ultimately it'd be a relatively short conversation because, and they're backward, and they're ratlings. You're from humans. Oh, that's interesting. Humans, there's a whole load we say. The dwarfs, though, Leagues of Time. There's a whole thing there, which I think could be quite fun. Yeah, I think that'd be better done for the whole stream. But I think in general, you can say they're just backwards from a feral world. On the other side, look at all their crazy stuff. And by the way, they're all completely wrong about everything. Okay. Hey, Conark. Hi, Andy. Hi. First time catching you live. I am delighted that you made it live. I don't do these consistently. The Ask Me Anythings are often done because it's Saturday afternoon. I've had a day doing some sort of work or organizing something that needs to be done, and I'm feeling a bit tired, and we've got the stream for Inside the Rookery coming up at 7:00. I'm sometimes involved with that, sometimes I'm not, and sometimes it's nice just to sit back before doing that stream or letting Lindsay go do the stream herself, because she'll be doing the stream this evening, and just letting them, go. And it's just good to just kick back and chat to you all. I like chatting to you all. Anyway, let's go on with your question. I wanted to ask something. Why do knights of the Warhammer world, Chittaghan Guard, or the White Wolves, Chittaghan use hammers? Shouldn't they use axes? So, I have had this conversation more than once, and there was a reason I had it. So we'll start there. Back in 2006, I was responsible for putting together the complete breakdown for the Cult of Ulrich for Black Library. And I was in the unenviable position of not just having to figure out why this was the case, but also asking Games Workshop why this was the case and was there anything I needed to take into account when I was doing my write-up. And you're right. Ulrich wields Blitzbiel traditionally. Blitzbiel is a great war axe. And Ulrich, the god of winter, war, and wolves, uses this axe to cleave everyone in twain. And you would think that a cavalry axe would make more sense for, say, for example, the White Wolves. A cavalry axe rather than a cavalry hammer. A cavalry hammer is just basically a long hafted hammer that you can wield more easily from the back of a horse. And having a cavalry axe seems 100% on theme here. An axe rather than a hammer. Surely they only have hammers because they have... And I didn't know the answer when I was sitting down. They got hammers because... So I sent a quick mail over to Games Workshop because I didn't want to contradict anything that they may have had planned. And I sent one over directly because I was behind the scenes at the time, so I could do it directly on their forums. And I said, hi, I'm currently writing this. and we've got the cavalry hammers, and they're just taken as red. And the reason that they're taken as red is because the miniatures have hammers. The White Wolf miniatures carry hammers. That's it. That's what they have. And some of the art depicted them with hammers. And I would like to justify this for why they use hammers rather than axes. The whole bloody claws thing suggests more blades and the claws of Ulrich and axes and bleeding and all the rest. The only reason I could see not to do that directly would be some sort of in-game bullshit about not wanting to incite corn. But it sounds like bullshit. War is war, and all war doesn't draw corn. Corn is much worse than just war alone and bloodshed and all the rest of it. Corn is bad shit. So I have a bit of a disparity here. Is there a reason for this other than the miniatures? And do I need to take it into account, or can I make one up? And I got an answer. And my answer was pretty short and sweet. And the answer was, it's because of the existing art and the existing models, none of which sourced Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, where Ulrich was marked as having an axe. They just made what they thought was cool. And the two development teams were working independently at the time, so there is no reason. So if you want to make up a reason, you can, but do be aware that it may get nixed because they might want to decide to make their own reason. To which I went, so you're saying that the studio might just overwrite this? Because if that's the case, I would rather not write a reason. Because if the studio is going to overwrite it, then that just makes this difference between Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay and Warhammer Fantasy Battle that wasn't required. People who are playing Warhammer Fantasy Battle who want to play Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay want to play the game that they're playing their battles with. They don't want to have to think, oh, they're two completely different universes. They just want to play Warhammer, for goodness sake. So I don't want to create something that's going to cause potentially issues. So how about I keep it vague, and I got basically the equivalent of a thumbs up to that. Do that, Andy, because if you keep it vague, then we don't need to worry about it. So if you go check the Tome of Salvation that was released for Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 2nd edition, it doesn't tackle this. It doesn't tackle it at all. And the reason it doesn't tackle it at all was because Games Workshop thought that they might tackle it. And they don't really. If you take a look at what happened with the Storm of Chaos, which went into this to a certain degree because it went into the Cult of Ulrich. It added a whole bunch of new details, some of which I took. It's not really covered there. The Teutogan Guard were added at this point. It's the first time we saw the Teutogan Guard, and they continued on the same general look that had been offered before. But you tend to find a lot of the hammers are given pointy bits like claws. So when they hit, you can rake them through. And that, I think, kicks ass and is super Ulrich. I was going to write a relatively in-depth box about it, and it was going to be striking at the core of what Ulricanism is. Ulricanism is all about the lessons that you learn through survival. The best teacher is the deadly situation you survive. And an axe is not the best weapon for a variety of reasons. Now, is hammers better? No, they're just not. The best weapons are often just sharp, pointy swords or long spears. And they are for a variety of reasons. But axes and hammers have their own uses, in particular. And I was going to basically lay it out that Ulrich and Blitzbiel had constantly hit issues. Drop in a couple of really cool myths about Ulrich facing off against a chaos god or some great horrible entity, and how the axe was to his detriment. And he would then say something to Sigmar, stick with your hammers or some bullshit like that. And you'd end up with yourself a lovely set of hammer wielders. You'll find it somewhat similar on the Sigmar side as well, because most of the shrine carriers amongst the Sigmarites were sword carriers at that time. And if you go into the Tome of Salvation, you'll find most of the Sigmarites are using big, huge, massive swords, not hammers, the ones that are responsible for holding onto the shrines. And they're called sword bearers or some equivalent. And that came from several of the novels, which when you're writing about the Sigmar cult and you're wanting to make sure that what you're writing doesn't contradict what comes from elsewhere, you include, and they've got myths for why they were using swords rather than hammers. And basically, that's what I would have done. I would have mythologized reasons for using hammers instead of the obvious axes. And then also given a bunch of other answers for how the Cult of Ulrich actually uses a wide variety of weapons. It's just that the miniatures, because it's so much easier, stick to the basic weapons. So long story short, I never wrote it. Well, I said a lot just to say I never wrote it, didn't I? Let's move on. Friend, why on earth is Lindsay coming in and saying sex games? What the hell? Did I miss something? I'm just going to move on from that. Hi, Lindsay. If you didn't know, Lindsay is my wife, and she's watching this, and apparently she's throwing conversations I don't understand. Friend or traitor, Andy, what do you think the meaning of life is? That is a good question, a really good question. And it's something that's going to be personal to everybody. We all have our own reasons for continuing on. For some people, it's religion. They take great faith. No, they don't take faith. They great source of joy from what religion and everything that it brings can to their life. I'm not religious, though, so that's clearly not going to work for me. But for me, it's the things that bring joy. And so many things bring joy to my life. Now, it might be religion for you. It might be taking a walk along a cliff with your child holding your hand and looking out across the sea. It may be a beautiful sunrise. It may be an open flower for the first time in your garden because you've never done gardening before, and this is the first flower you've ever made. The meaning of life for me is the things that bring you joy at each step through the course of your life, and they live with you. Memorable moments, the things that you try to create in role-playing games. Role-playing games, when you're a games designer, what your core design goals is to create something that is memorable, that anyone that plays it will go, oh, do you remember when we did that? It was amazing. It's not just set pieces. Anyone can create set pieces and things that look like they are epic. It's creating something that allows players to create their own memorable moments, because facilitating players to create their own version of the world that you might be creating, and it suddenly turns into something they will never forget. That's freaking amazing. And I take great joy in that. Whenever somebody comes up to me and says, I used this, it did this, and we laugh for weeks. That happened 4 years ago. We're still laughing about it. That for me is the meaning of my life. It's my kids, it's my wife, it's the things that bring joy. That's not a very cohesive answer, but hey, go figure. Hey, SnowSif80, thank you very much again. Running a Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay campaign where fishmen are starting to run rampant. Fishmen! Where's Biofoot? PCs have to travel the world and find items to remake a totem to reseal the fishermen in the ocean. Quite right, too. This is taking place in 2502. Any fun plots, ideas to throw in? 2502 is when Emperor Karl Franz takes the throne. So if you're playing in the Empire, which is a very common place for people to play when they're playing Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, I would not be able to resist for tying in some sort of coup to remove the new emperor into that somehow. And possibly even if the Manan cult down in Marienburg is responsible for putting the fishermen down, for example, then maybe trying to use the empire to slam an attack into Marienburg. There's all sorts of crazy stuff that you could play with. But if you're taking place in 2502, the fun thing that I play with is the coronation of Karl Franz and using that somehow because it's altogether too cool. Okay, moving down. No, it's Dynaman first. Dynaman, the new Cathay book says that Cathay gave gunpowder to the Sky Titans. It does, to stop their all-consuming migrations 50 years before the comment. Indeed. To me, this implies that 1, the war in the sky started at least 50 years earlier than prior lore. Agreed. 2, the ogres were a huge threat at the time that were successfully pushing deeply into both Cathay and the Sky Titans over decades. Also agreed. And 3, the earlier invasions, unlikely comet, probably wiped out most Sky Titans before the main ogre migration moved in later. That also seems very fair. You haven't made any controversial points there. There's nothing that makes me go, really? I'm not so sure about that one, Bio. That mean Dino Man? Yeah, I'm cool with that. Gary Gerryanson, regarding worlds ruled by other physic laws, Jacek I'm not going to pronounce that right. Novel, Other Songs is an epic sci-fi fantasy work based on Hellenistic natural philosophy. I did not know that. I'm going to go look it up, and I'm also tempted to look up how to pronounce his name. Jacek Dukaj? It looks like Dukaj. I am terrible with any language other than English because I am from Britain. I'm the worst. Does it say how to pronounce his name? Oh, it does. Oh no, it doesn't. It sort of half pronounces it there. It's a Duque. That doesn't sound like it'd be right. Really? Duque? Jacek Duque, maybe? If someone correct me, please. That sounds awesome. Thanks very much for pointing out. I'm going to go check that out later. Dragon Knight 377. How do you see Grail Knights interacting with normal nobles? Pretty well. Grail Knight policing nobles? No. Nobles deceiving Grail Knights? I mean, some will, because not all nobles are well and good. Indeed, most of them are pretty corrupt. Power, that's how it works. In my point of view, the disconnect is a cause of corruption. Grail Knights are pretty much all nobles themselves. It's very rare that you find that the non-nobility reach Grail Knight status, although that is almost certain to be eroded over the course of time, because Games Workshop often attempts to remove anything that looks like it is ultimately bigoted. And this would be class warfare at its basic level. And it would not surprise me if this does get eroded. But assuming that we go with classic Bretonnian lore, then yeah, they're mostly nobles anyway. So how do they interact with other nobles? Mostly fine. They know what the rules are. They understand the rules, and they are intending to ensure that all nobles do what they should do. Do they police them? No, it's not their job to police them. Not at all. Will they judge them? Oh, hell yeah. And will some of them potentially even go against the law to bring down what they perceive to be a corrupt noble? Possibly. But if they do, they're a bad guy, which means they're in a weird place, because the law says they should not do this. There's only one person who can judge the local lord. That's the local lord, or whoever he swears directly to. The law in Bretonnia is pretty draconian in that regard. There's no handy little laws saying, you can kind of, bring down the nobles if they do something bad. The only one that really is given that power with any degree is, Morgana Le Fay, really. She pretty much has impunity to come along and say, yeah, no to this one, or yeah, yes to that one. But that's equally going to breed dissatisfaction in a host of different ways. Would nobles deceive Grail Knights? Hell yeah. Loads of them would. I mean, surely some of them are going to be pure and noble of heart, but others just no. But I do agree that the disconnect between them could cause corruption. Yeah, totally could. 100%. Let's move down to the Callantir. What exactly is suffused with wind from an insetting perspective? Do you attract ambient wind? Yes. From the environment? Yes. Does your soul tap into the aether? No. Can it be multiple things? Yes. Also, hello. So, loosely speaking, suffused with the wind means that one of the winds of magic collects within your body in a way that's not normal. So you might have much more Akshui inside you, the red wind of magic. You might have much more Gyron within you, the green wind of magic. And it brings two major changes. Change number one, if there's a spellcaster nearby, they can draw upon that magic and use it to help fuel their spells. That's handy, particularly if you happen to be, say, suffused with Gyron and you're using Gyron. So I'm suffused with this wind, and I always have a source of that wind ready to throw out to others. Now, once you've done that, to a degree, you'd think it would be sucked out, but the nature of the winds of magic is it's constantly flowing and shifting, and it recharges itself pretty quickly. The second one is that wind and its nature changes your character. So if you are suffused with Akshui, you're much more likely to be temperamental, you're angry, possibly even rage-filled, passionate, very likely to have a burning something, whether it's an anger or a desire. You are a much more jittery person in general, whereas someone that is suffused with Heish, that's the white wind of magic, very pure, and it brings along enlightenment, much more likely to be erudite, intelligent, have an insightful mind that looks at things and can take it apart and understand it. You're much more philosophical in nature. The light wind works in that way, but it can often, much like all the winds of magic, have negative downsides too. The negative downside being you overthink everything. And sometimes you are paralyzed, crippled with indecision because there are so many different things that you could do. So suffused with basically means one of the winds gathers in you much more than the other winds. And it would be possible to be suffused with more than one, although it would require a particularly fun story to make sense of it. Hopefully that helps. And it is just the ambient wind. It has nothing to do with tapping into the aether or anything similar. The Wrestling Theatre. Thoughts on FASA Shadowrun? Do you like how it meshes token style fantasy with cyberpunk? Sometimes it feels like it never truly meshes with its lore. I quite like cyberpunk. I first encountered it when I was pretty much a kid, all the way back when I was a teenager. My cousin was playing it. Hi, David, if you're out there. And I borrowed his books for a long time. We lived in different towns. It was for such a long time that I sort of forgot about them. And he's like, where's my bloody books? And I sent them back to him eventually. And I quite liked it. It was fun. I wasn't that keen on the system at the time. I rewrote it when I played the game. I thought that the concept of mixing fantasy with cyberpunk was fine. Did I think it was always well executed? No. Did I read the novels, though, just to see how it landed? Kind of, yeah. They were very American, because obviously American-centric in general. But I kind of digged it. It was okay. I do, however, agree with you. Sometimes it feels like it never truly meshes. And you know what? Sometimes it doesn't. And could that be rebuilt in a way that would make it feel like it meshes? I think so. I think it could have been a little stronger in getting its core ideas across. But if you are willing to run with it and make it work in a way that suits your table, I think you can get a lot of fun out of that game. It's good. P2 Jack 2000. Are ogre farts biological warfare? Yes. Also dark deeds. Oh, hell yeah. I don't talk about dark deeds that much anymore. I should talk about it more often. But if you haven't bought dark deeds yet, do please go and buy a copy of dark deeds. I almost certainly have a copy down here. I do. And in fact, if you happen to be in Sweden this weekend, I am going to be up at GothCon along with Lindsay, who hasn't come back in. So I hope I haven't missed any more comments. And we are going to be there doing a variety of shows. I'm going to be doing a workshop for how to do maps. And I'm also going to be on a couple of panels. So if you would like to come and see me in person, you can do so up in Sweden. And we're also going to take a few copies of Dark Deeds over with us because, well, we can. And we're going to sit at a table somewhere. We're not really setting up booth. But we sort of are. We'll take a black cloth, cover it over a table and say, let's go, yay! We're just going to have some Dark Deeds there and maybe a copy of Solasta. If you don't know Solasta, I'll bring that out right now as he looks around to see if he can see a copy. I can't ignore that. We've also got a few Solasta books here, which we'll take over too. But cut a long story short, yes to both. Moving down, and we're at the point now where I can see if anyone's got the J's are often silent. Yeah, they are. I don't know. Okay, thank you again, Gigawens. I shall be specific this time. Briefly, how would you drop Kroot into Warhammer Fantasy? That's a good question. My first answer is the unsatisfactory one, which is I wouldn't, because they are a uniquely 40k race that I like in 40k. Now, if I was bringing them in, it would just be, most of my converging of the two settings is I'm not bringing them in and making them a Warhammer species. It's 40k Kroot arriving and doing Kroot shit, or Tau shit, I suppose, in this particular instance, or it could be either. So how would I bring them in? I bring them in as Kroot, exactly as they are pitched inside 40k, and I would use that and weave it into whatever story that I was telling at the time. I wouldn't turn them into a Warhammer race. And that's something that I generally prefer. We're past the point now where we can port easily from Warhammer or 40k the species that are unique to each. It doesn't happen anymore. It happened a lot in the past, and to a degree you still see it when you get the occasional Zote or Ambul popping up in, like, what was it, Necromunda popped up in, I can't recall. And that's fine, but very rarely do you see that anymore. Nowadays they keep separate, and that's also what I prefer, but that doesn't mean that I don't enjoy one invading the other and the ideas of one impacting the other, or individuals moving over. Is that something that'll happen in Warhammer? LAWhammer, pardon me? No. LAWhammer's about Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, so we won't do it there. So how would I do it? I would keep them as the Kroot, use them as the Kroot, and have them do Kroot things. I hope that helps. I'm not entirely sure that it will. Okay, moving down. I'm just bringing out this one as I go by as well. I have a laundry list of things Shadowrun could do better. Yeah, there's a lot it could do better, but it's an old game. There's a lot of legacy games like that. I have a laundry list of things that Warhammer could do better. Like a long one. That doesn't mean that I don't talk about it with great affection frequently. Anyway, moving past there. The Bull Person. Are Damsels of the Lady more or less common than Wizards, Blessed Priests in the Empire? Are they a rare sight or are they all over the place? So they're about the same. And this was, again, a question that was tackled directly back in the day when we were writing those books. And the general position was that the instance of those capable of doing magic were basically the same on both sides, and how they handled those individuals was different. Damsels, boys being spirited away, or alternatively a host of rogue wizards inside Bretonnia, and over on the Empire side, the far more formalized colleges of magic and a whole load of people sitting outside that system. So that means that in numbers, they're about the same. The big difference, though, is that in the Empire, they have a central point where they gather, a few other minor colleges and guilds and the like as well, but they have a central point, which means in Altdorf, wizards are common. But in the rest of the Empire, they just aren't. They're not common at all, and superstition is rife, where by comparison, the damsels are sort of riding around all over the place. Some of them are in specific locations, some of them are moving from place to place, doing whatever work is required. So they are not exactly a common sight in the same way that, say, the nobility is not necessarily a common sight for many. But that doesn't mean that they have not been seen in many locations across Bretonnia frequently enough that most people will have seen one or two once. I mean, for goodness sake, I've met Prince, as he was then, Charles, or King Charles. He was just wandering around the moors not far from my house. And that's not someone that you would say you'd meet that often. But everyone's going to have a tale. But yeah, they're about the same numbers in terms of population counts and how many per 100 people are wizards or what equivalent. Well, 100 is a bit small. You get the idea. Can you caramelize celery with heat? And dope pin. Yeah, I do quite like my Dark Deeds pin. Thanks, Biofoot. I hate celery. So my answer to this one is as clear as it can be. I don't care. Not the most accurate of answers. For those of you who want to know, I will check. But holy heck, I really don't care. Can you caramelize celery? Also, did I spell caramelize right? No, it says trying to maybe spell it the you can caramelize it to unlock surprisingly sweet savory flavor by slow cooking it until tender and golden brown. So the answer is yes, or more realistically, I don't care. Having said that, I do think celery works very well inside a stock. So a good vegetable stock is always better with celery in it. But I am not convinced that anyone should have celery. My brother adores it. He has it with hummus all the time. Not my cup of tea. Skylar Martin, I've been convinced by a podcast to try dropping caffeine and sugar. Yep, good idea. Wish me luck. Good luck. Also, any thoughts on Age of Sigmar rumors? Aka Sigmar possibly dying. I love any development of stories that bring in a new direction for the game. I was never keen on Age of Sigmar being Age of Sigmar. It just felt so... I just didn't like it. Just not my cup of tea. So the idea of Sigmar dying actually makes me smile a little bit. And in some respects, LAWhammer and what LAWhammer is doing with the story of Sigmar is a pushback on the Perfect God Sigmar stories, and it's one that's based upon the stories of Sigmar that came from various Warhammer sources. So yeah, so I have no issues with that at all. In fact, I like the idea that the general setting will be developing hopefully into something new. As for dropping caffeine and sugar, I've tried to drop caffeine 1,000 times, but I have long been a loose self-medicated caffeine for ADHD chap. And whenever I drop it, I hit all manner of fun outcomes. By comparison, though, I eat no sugar. That's not quite true. There'll be a pudding like once a year, once every special occasion or something. But I generally eat no sugar at all. And I do that because I'm diabetic. I was diet controlled rather than pill controlled. I have pills around here because I'm now controlled with medication. But I was diet controlled for almost 15 years. And the only way to do diet controlled diabetes is using a diet with no sugar in it and cutting down anything that's got high processing, highly processed carbs that turn to sugar quickly. So dropping those down for complex carbs. And I benefited. I lost weight. It was good. I was a far fatter guy than I am just now. And I'm not skinny. I've got a lot of weight to lose at the moment. So I strongly recommend it. Caffeine, I would love to get rid of, and I've tried several times, but as this can of Pepsi Max will show, I have yet to succeed. I've quit it like 5 times. I will probably try again because I'm equally sometimes convinced that I should probably do so. Kuren Shima. Oh, holy heck. Let me just reposition myself. So, hello, everyone. Thoughts on relationship between Cathay and Western dragons? Your guess on Dragon Emperor power level compared to Father of all Dragons, whatever his name is. I feel like they should be comparable, but the fact that Ulthuan dragons become subservient like, or in your words, slave to high elves, makes it feel like Cathay dragons are on a different level. The feats the Cathay dragons did during the Cataclysm. Also, do you think if high elves dragon songs affect Cathay dragons? So there's a whole host of different stuff here, and let's pick out each one and just give a quick answer to each component. Thoughts on the relationship between Cathay and Western dragons? Fraught, I think, is probably the answer. Western dragons fall into very loosely 2 categories. That is the dragons of Ulthuan and the dragons that aren't in Ulthuan. You can mix in some cross-pollination there between dragons that used to be Ulthuan dragons or dragons with the wood elves who are not the same, but they're sort of a bridge between the two. But broadly, those that are caught up with the dragon song and those that aren't. And I think that in both cases, it's going to be pretty fraught. Your guess on Dragon Emperor power level compared with Father of all Dragons, or Mother if you prefer, because hey, they have to come from somewhere. Yeah, they're comparable. And some of the big dragons are significantly more impressive than the Dragon Emperor in terms of size, if not necessarily in terms of power level. The Dragon Emperor is not described with the same extraordinary magnificence that you get for some of the larger dragons. If you want to see a picture of one of the larger ones that Games Workshop has depicted, go dive into the Tamarkan book. The Tamarkan book is basically a dragon the size of a mountain. Good times. And the Tamarkan's forces accidentally cross that, and they have a lot of problems because that's one big fuck off dragon. So how would they compare? They're different. The Dragon Emperor clearly is a very magical stroke mystical, if you prefer, dragon, where many of the other dragons are much more physical and less magical. But magic has long been a component of how many dragons work. So comparable, but not necessarily the same. And there's going to be a host of them. It's not just going to be the Dragon Emperor, but most of the ancient dragons were hunted down by the lizard men a long time ago. So there's very few survivors. I feel like they should be comparable, agreed. But the fact that the Ulthuan dragons become subservient, like, slave to high elves, makes it feel like Cathay dragons are on a different level. It's not that they're on a different level, it's that they have been influenced. And that influence is deep and abiding. And all of the descendants of one particular dragon are influenced. And it appears to be the descendants of that one. Now, does that song work on others? If we go by the books, maybe it does. But it would need to get them. If it failed, it almost certainly would involve a whole host of killy time. I think for tension and cool stories, the answer should be probably yes, because that makes for a super fraught relationship between the High Elves and the Cathayan dragons, and one that could be almost dangerous to the Cathayans. And let's be honest, they need some good, solid threats to the perfection that they're often presented as almost being inside the various books. Sure, the Dragon Kids squabble, but they are still nevertheless heading this civilization that's almost perfect on all fronts, where chaos doesn't really raise its head, where none of the gods are a concern, where all of the citizens are working together towards a perfect outcome. And it seems like the description of it's very idealized. So it would be nice to see some external threats that aren't just chaos coming at the gates, that could provide a deeper and potentially fascinating story. So I think that would be awesome. I think. Grail Knight 377. About Grail Knights. Socially, would they come off as a bit strange? Very possibly. They go through a unique, painful process that changes them, and meeting God, etc. So there's a little bit here that I do think that is worth discussing a little bit later. Where are we at time? Oh, we've still got like 20 minutes left. We're good. And I would like to get some of the other questions as well. So I'll be relatively short, but not too short on this one. Grail Knights are individuals, and all individuals react to the world in different ways. And all of the Grail Knights have got different blessings after they have supped from the Great Chalice. And that supping makes them superhuman in different ways. Some are going to come across as super devout weirdos. Others are going to come across just like any other guy. Many of them are going to be not immortal, but definitely very, very long-lived, and including the king, who's been on he's been around for a long time. Leon Lunker. He's been around for a long time. So strange, yeah, in certain lights, but not all, some. And the unique, painful process they go through, unique, often, painful, often, and the divine revelation at the end of it changes people. Of course it does. When you go through any extreme event, you're going to change. But the nature of that change is certainly not set in stone. Everyone will change differently, meaning that some of them will come across as exactly as you describe, really strange, not somebody that you could easily be a friend with or commune with, because they've got their own view of what the world is now. They've got their own set of moral rules and guidances that might not be the same as your average mortal man. They have changed to become something different. I once saw a comparison. I don't think it was the Lorebeards that did it. I don't think we did it. But we drew upon it. And that was that the Grail Knights were effectively like superheroes. And some of them were just insane, because some superheroes are. Others are just your regular old, your friendly neighborhood Grail Knight. Perhaps that's not the best comparison to make, but I think it's sort of fair. Grail Knights are all unique and they're all individuals, and trying to pigeonhole them all as one thing is probably going to fail, in the same way that trying to say that all Bretonnians are all the same is going to fail. They are a host of individuals, and they're going to come out in a host of different ways. But I will say that the vast majority, if not probably all, are going to come out of it as... Now, I don't want to put a value judgment on this. I don't want to say they're better people. But I will say that they more strongly espouse the virtues of the lady. And they are going to be very firm in their virtuous nature. And that's going to be relatively universal. Now, what that virtuous nature manifests as is again going to be different. Some of them are going to be weirdly hardline. Some of them are going to be weirdly accepting of things that other Grail Knights never would. So it's a long and complicated thing, made up of a lot of complicated individuals, all of whom have seen trauma, responded to that trauma in different ways, and been elevated by a goddess for being worthy, for having survived the trauma in a fashion that makes them better. In some respects, a very Ulrican way of viewing the world. If you take a look at what Ulrich says, if you can survive and learn from it, you will be a better person. Ulrich survives and fucks up everything he meets in his life, screws everything up, but comes out at the end of it a better person. And that's ultimately also what the Grail Knights are doing. Yeah, that's an interesting way of putting it. Right, I'm going to quickly run back and just scroll back to see the first at LAWhammer I find, because it's about time I did some of these. Okay, 15-year-old Andy. 15-year-old thought sliced bread was the coolest, newest invention ever. Stormcloak scald. Oh. Right, let's out. Here we go. Yes, I did miss your super chat. I'm glad that we caught it now. So we're all good there. We've already caught Shadowrun. Moving down here. You're not right about that. I'm wrong about that. I'm Veil Rias. White Knights of White Wolf using cavalry hammers. The writers had a Warhammer fantasy. Yep, that one's really cool. All right. Come on. Here we go. No, I've already answered that. Crap. Come on. There's got to be one here. Here we go. In Shadowrun, the elves get 2 ethno-states, Oregon and Ireland, but dwarves and trolls get jack of shit. Not a single high-tech dwarf hold. Yeah. It's a shame. You often find this with elves, though. People always give elves shit. I'm not sure why, but they do. 100% true. Here's a LAWhammer. Is it possible that Sigmar became the new Azurian? No, because he didn't become the creator god. Nor did he become the judge. If you take a look at what happens in Age of Sigmar, he's not the judge. He's just one god who espouses his particular route towards what's good and bad. And they run a council thing. They do a thing. He's just a dude. He's just a really powerful dude. So I don't think this would be the case. Now, did he gain aspects of power that other gods may have had? Sure, because that's the nature of Age of Sigmar. They take everything that came before and they say, and they took their powers and became something bigger. So, yeah, sure, you could probably say that perhaps this is an event that occurred, and if they wrote it, it wouldn't surprise me. But in terms of character, absolutely not. He's nothing like Azurian. Non-interventionist Azurian, the judge who judges over all gods, including the Chaos gods. Yeah, no. Quite a different thing. One there, sort of at Lindsay. Can we see the cats, please? Well, the cats aren't allowed out here because we keep this room cat-free, because this room is used by Andy Leask, who plays in our Warhammer game and is my partner over at Rookery Publications. And Andy Leask is severely allergic to cats. So we keep our living room cat-free, which is where we play LAWhammer, and we keep my office cat-free because this is where we discuss shit and we talk crap out. So sadly, I can't do it. If you ever get Lindsay doing a stream by herself, for example, if she was on Inside the Rookery and streaming that from not the games room, she's going to be in the games room today though. If you watch that, then yes, you'll get to see the cat. Let's just make sure I've not missed any down at the bottom. Here we go. I don't know what this is. Let's read it. They are put through the most despair in their mortal lives and somehow make it to the other side. It's going to change enough to be noticeable, in my opinion, for the Grail Knights. Oh, yeah, they're all going to, all of them are going to be changed. And I don't think that I was suggesting differently. But the nature of that change is not necessarily going to be something that makes them super weird. All right. The Singe Master just got back from Warhammer World. Yay! What are the two swords on the wall in Bugman's Bar flanking Galmarad's? One looks like... I can't remember. So there's one in... Oh, it's in Bugman's. The last time I went down to Warhammer World, Bugman's was shut because they were renovating it. So I don't know the answer to this one. I could probably find it pretty quickly because I know peeps that go into Warhammer World pretty much every day. I don't know the answer to this one. I'm now vaguely intrigued. I might go down to Nottingham to find out. So sorry, Singemeister, can't give you the answer on that one. Kurenshima! Which lore of magic can help decrease the off-target effect of CRISPR genome editing and makes CRISPR safer to use? Okay, so what you're looking for is genes being modified in such a fashion that it doesn't fuck you up, I suppose. And the best lore for that, allowing everything to continue and life to constantly churn onwards, will be Gyron, without any doubt. Gyron is the one that's going to work here. But if you're looking for the lore of magic that will make you much more effective with CRISPR, so using that technology, understanding it, and getting to the nitty-gritty of it, Gyron is useful, but arguably Shaman would be better. It's worth noting that Shaman inside the Warhammer world in comparison to Age of Sigmar has been pitched differently. And the original Warhammer world's version of Shaman has got much more technological aspects wrapped up inside it, and would work quite well with that. It's also worth noting that Heish, light magic, is going to give you the illumination to perhaps study and understand the whole concept better. But if you're going to stick on one lore, go with Gyron. Good question. Skylar Martin, thank you very much. Any more examples of undivided demons and what they're like? My only example I know in Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay starter set in Be'lakor. And there's actually loads of them. And a lot of them are not necessarily demons you would even realize were necessarily undivided, like the Screamers that used to just... there was a whole bunch of demons sticking around 6th edition, which were just demons that kicked around that weren't aligned with any of the chaos powers. And they flew around like shoals of fish inside the warp and then eventually pass out through the gates or through any other warp nastiness that might be opened up. Aether, warp, realm of chaos, whatever you want to call it. When it comes to big named ones, though, they're pretty rare. And whilst there's an awful lot of older ones, most of the older demons that used to exist inside Warhammer... Did I miss... chat. Okay, I'm noticing that Dragon Knight. I will pull to you because I moved through all the chats really quickly. So we've got the bit strange one. No, I've got that one. I don't think I've missed you, have I? Okay, I'll go and check again just to make sure. Just bring up, and I'll do once I've finished this one. I'll go check it up. Yeah, there's a lot of them, and a lot of the novels have just got random demons that are not necessarily assigned to chaos powers. But there's a problem because later writers took those demons and they went, actually, it's a demon of Nurgle. Actually, it's a demon of Khorne, because there has been repeated efforts by Games Workshop to eradicate anything that's not one of the four great powers. And then they vacillate away from it again and say, oh no, there's a host of demons that aren't aligned to any of them. It's not that they are demons of the great undivided, the great beast, or anything else. They're just their own unique entities. But then they get pulled out. So even the oldest ones, like the old Mardarg, got turned out to be a demon of Nurgle. And it's like, no, don't do that. And broadly, there's loads, and you should feel free to make your own. But most of the ones that Games Workshop created have now been wrapped under the big four. I mean, for a while in 6th edition, they massively outnumbered the four great powers of chaos, but that sort of disappeared. 5th edition, not 6th, if I remember correctly. So now let's find that post where apparently I missed one. Let's see if I can see it. The bloke person. And I think you missed my super chat. So I'm going back to the bloke person. So I've got this one. Speaking of Grail Knights, say the... Oh, this is the one. Ha! Excellent. Speaking of Grail Knights, would you say their duel with the Green Knight would often be as metaphorical as physical, representing a final test? Yes. Yeah, often. And it's often not going to be just a fight. In fact, I would recommend any movies about Grail quests in general to show that fighting is often one of the weaker ways to resolve your Grail quest. It's often about conquering your own fears and becoming someone different, developing into a better version of yourself. And for some, that will be showing courage in a way that they didn't before, and it will be a fight and standing up and defending someone. For others, it will be backing away from a fight, realizing that this is a fight that shouldn't be had. So yes is the big answer to this one, the bloke person. Definitely. Don't try to think of it as just a literal scrap should this be the outcome for a particular Grail quest. And apologies for missing that, because I absolutely did miss it. Right, so moving back up here, I've done the CRISPR one, and we've done the Undivided Demons, sorta. Let's go into the Gigawens. And also, we're at 8 minutes left for this stream. The next stream that I'm going to be porting you all over to, assuming that you follow to the next stream, is over in Rookery Publications, where we have got, we've got a really good one in Rookery Publications this week. I'm actually going to pull it up, because I really like this one. So we've got Ross Payton coming in. Now, you might not know Ross. He's brilliant. He's a tabletop games designer and writer. And let's just double check there. And he's coming on to discuss using locations and weaving them into your scenarios. He's also going to be discussing one of the games that he's currently working on over on Patreon. He's a great raconteur. He's responsible for most of the oldest TTRPG podcasts that there are. I think you'll really enjoy it. So that's going on in 7 minutes. But given I only have 7 minutes, I should dive back into the questions. Played in a level... L5R. Legend of the Five Rings. Yeah. Where it was revealed towards the end of the campaign that Nippon was an exonym for Rokugan by a Bretonnian ship showing up. Are there any RPG mashups that you think would work? So yeah, that actually wouldn't be too bad. It's a good way of making a Nippon for Warhammer and just taking L5R and porting it over. Running with that sounds good. Yeah, you definitely could do that. I have mashed up almost every game you can imagine because I'm constantly tinkering with things and playing. The most common ones are things like using Call of Cthulhu in something else. The Cthulhu mythos is such a broad tool that can be used in so many games. But I've had games turn from one type to another multiple times, whether it's turning what looks like a normal fantasy game into a vampire game, and quite literally Vampire the Masquerade style game, where you took your standard Delta Green one and actually, no, it's not Delta Green, we're actually playing Vampire. Or Vampires, the Masquerade exists in 40k, and 40k, 40,000 years in the future, what would happen with all those vampires 40,000 years later? Yeah, I've done that. So I think almost anything can be mashed up together. You just have to be clever. You just have to be patient, and you just have to come up with a really good story. That's the big one. If you've got a story that's worth telling, then the mashup will almost always work. If it's just done as a last-minute denouement like this one, it doesn't always work. Sometimes you're like, oh, that's really clever. That was cool. But sometimes you're like, oh, well, we were playing that all along, and it's actually this. That's not what I thought I was playing. It can sometimes cause disappointment. So often it's worth making sure that your players are coming along for the ride. But if the mashup is given center focus and is actually the story being told, then I think it can often work. The most common mashup I've done, obviously, is Warhammer and 40k. You've got pictures you can post in Discord. Go for it, Singemeister. Just drop by that one as I'm going down. Just want to make sure I don't miss any comments. Beerval, what's your favorite old Warhammer adventure that hasn't been adapted to 4E? Probably. I have was Eureka adapted? I don't think Eureka's been adapted to 4E. I can't remember if I added that onto the list to be adapted inside the companions. I'm pretty sure Eureka wasn't. So probably Eureka, which was a White Dwarf adventure originally, got reprinted into a book in first edition. I did an update for that in second edition for the Black Industries website, and I wanted it to be in fourth edition. For all it's a ridiculous adventure, it always makes me smile, and it makes for a great one-off. I've run that adventure maybe about 40 times. The adventure that I've played more than any other is Night of Blood, which is why I gave it for free alongside 4th edition when it was released. So we did a quick update of Night of Blood, which we updated so that we could play it over at Gen Con. And we updated that in like 4 days. Lindsay did the first pass on that. I did the edit. I sent it off to get some new art from Scott, as I recall. And he pulled that out of his arse in like about a day. He did everything that was needed for the entire book. It was brilliant. Yeah, that was great. And we got that out and we turned it around in no time at all. And we gave everybody a free adventure for Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 4. I imagine it's still sitting up over on Drive-Thru RPG. And I recommend you get that. But my favorite one that hasn't been adapted is probably Eureka. Although there's a part of me that feels like, it hasn't happened. I'm going to bring this one up because I do think it's worth bringing up. Could the Empire build something like the Cogfort? As it stands, no. They do not have anything close to that technology. But could they make a one-off, perhaps that was associated with, I don't know, a one-off that would be associated with like the Gold College? Yeah, very possibly. Oh, the Forge arrived. Hey, I'm really sorry. I'm about to finish on this side, but I'm about to go flying over to Rookery Publications because they're starting in 3 minutes. So if you'd like to join everybody, and hi everybody that's come on over from World Anvil. If you'd like to go join the Rookery Publications stream, I'll give you a quick raid at the end of this stream, which is in 3 minutes. Light up Andy Law's beard. Yeah, thanks for that. In 3 minutes, they're going to be having a discussion with one of my favorite podcasters and tabletop writers about how to create really fascinating locations and how to weave them into your stories in ways that you might not expect. He's also going to be discussing a new game that he's currently working on and how he's incorporating many of those elements. It will be, I think, a fascinating stream. It's starting in 2 minutes' time, which is when I'm signing off in this stream. So I will do, I'm opening it right now, a raid over there to make sure they have it. So if I go /raid, and that'll be Rookery Publications. There we go. And we will pull you over to there in approximately 2 minutes. So if you can hang on for 2 minutes, we will have you over there. And the stream is going to be super cool, super awesome. So there is that. But beyond that, thanks to everybody else who turned up for this stream. It was a super fun chat where we have covered all sorts of fun and fascinating details from the Warhammer world and beyond, including a whole bunch of scientific goodies, particularly from Biofoot, and how we could best incorporate them in our world building, which is always fun. So with that all done, I am now just waiting to see if the Rookery is on, because the second they go live, I will ping you over to them. So if anyone puts a quick question in just before we end this stream, I will answer it. I'm just bringing up the Rookery stream at this side now, because the second they go live, I'll move you over. They are not live yet. So we've got 1 second for a question if anyone wants to throw it out before I quickly do the raid. Here's one. How about making crowdfunding for Pass of the Old Ones and the new studio? I might do something for the new studio. I don't actually know what the best funding for building a new studio outside my house would be. That would be fun because it's costing me an arm and a leg. Can't do Pass of the Old One because it uses Games Workshop's IP. And I don't want to do that because I'll get sued. I have no interest in doing those parts. Hey, they've just started. So I am going to raid. If you are watching over on YouTube, I put it in the wrong place. You can't raid yourself. I put it into the Rookery one by mistake. Let me just pop it into that one. Raid. Okay, bye-bye, Twitch folks. If you're watching over on YouTube, you should hopefully get a link to go straight through onto Rookery Publications. If it doesn't turn up, just type in Rookery Publications in your search bar because their talk is going to be awesome. I will see you very soon. Goodbye.